All right. Getting a lot of messages about this movement and whether I know about it. Do I trust it? Is it part of Let Them Eat Cereal? One, no, it's not. I don't know them. I can't even seem to find them. That's great for them. Good, yay. Um, yeah, I'm not a part of it. I don't know about it. Make your own choices as far as it. I can't access the Let Them Eat Cereal TikTok anymore, so I can't post about this, but the movement seems a little aggressive, a little non-inclusive, makes several assumptions. I think it's a good idea overall. I think we should. I'd also like to remind you, it took us 3 months to encourage people to not eat cereal for 30 days. For many people, it did stick. They have not bought an Eggo since. They buy the generic brand of cereal. That was asking them to make a small change. Many people who wrote in going, I'll try, but I'll try for a day or two because probably not. The shutdown movement is not wrong in the things it's asking us to limit or adjust or reconsider. It is the fastest, most effective way to curb the 1%. Cut off the blood supply to the appendage we would like to see removed. It is decentralized, which will make it harder to shut down. The only thing is, if you want to negotiate with our politicians, you're going to need one person to speak for us. If you want to negotiate, they are not going to handle we speak for the trees. Be very, 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 very careful who you elect to be your voice. Most of the time, people don't have aligned goals or values. A lot of people have skeletons in their closet that will be found out right around the time they go to speak for everybody. And in this decentralized thing, although it will be great because Michigan can do what Michigan wants to do for Michigan, some people might get more aggressive than others. Some groups might be more helpful than others. There should also be a master repository of tips and tricks. I will say their first line item is we take out all our money from the banks on one specific day. Their next item, 3 down, is nobody but healthcare goes to work. Well, first of all, what you're suggesting is a run on the banks, and the banks will shut that down. But also, if nobody but healthcare is going to work, who is it that's in the bank to let you take out all your money? And nobody but healthcare goes to work? Well, okay, fine for the hospitals, that makes sense. Most of the doctors, nurses have somewhere they can sleep in the hospital in emergency situations. They could probably bunker in. That doesn't factor in delivering food services to the elderly, respite care for, so many families. Dialysis centers, which unfortunately are privatized and for profit. People will have to get back and forth to work. You will need mechanics. You will need gas stations to be open. You will need some kind of food service because, let's face it, we need coffee. I mean, there's a suggestion about don't buy new parts for your cars. Go to the junkyard. Make sure your mechanic will take a junk part. A lot of this, and it starts March 15th, which is actually giving people a month. That is a very short runway. But people are going to have to ask a lot of questions to make sure that this fits in. I'm a big fan of actively delete Meta and X. We've been asking people to do that since the election, and it's been met with resistance and a whole lot of 4 billion excuses of why they won't. Remove our money from banks and corporate financial institutions, cancel unused accounts and lines of credit. That just makes sense. Some people have opted to stop paying rent. I would look to laws of your state. Forming a tenants union makes sense, but most neighbors don't even talk to each other. You have a month to form a tenants unit. Cancel all your subscription services, Amazon Prime, whatever. Yes, but things like Amazon Prime you've paid for the year, so they won't run out. You can definitely unsubscribe, but you'll still technically have Amazon Prime for the rest of the year. But yeah, you should cancel a lot of subscriptions you don't use. As I promise you, once you turn them all off, one by one as you recognize what you need and use, turn them back on. Many people have many subscriptions they kind of forget about or don't really use. You're paying for a lot you don't really use. But a lot of landlords are looking for an excuse to keep people out, and if you can't convince your building to go no pay rent, be very careful. Stop working. Healthcare professionals will continue to work and find a way to continue to help their local communities with their medical needs. People who work in other vital systems will continue to work and find alternative ways to serve their community without giving the ruling class their labor. Self-employed business and people will use their businesses and their services to help their community, ensure that wealth is not being distributed back to the hands of the oligarchs and the corporate giants. That makes a lot of assumptions about community. This movement also doesn't factor in the other half of the population that's still going to go to work. You're going to have to get them on this. Otherwise, okay, cool, the Democrats decide not to show up to work and take their money out of the banks. Cool. We'll stop shopping. No buying, no ordering anything. If something must be purchased, we will purchase it from a locally owned and operated business, not a franchise store. That should just be standard operating procedure. And preferably buying goods that are manufactured locally as well. Well, as we learned from the, 8-hour USPS package holdup, almost nothing is made locally. Even your local forager, honey maker, the bags they use, the jars they use, China. We will not travel. No fun trips or vacations. If travel is necessary to seek refuge in another country or to mobilize aid to return home to gather friends, family, or loved ones, then do so safely and efficiently. Only buy gas from independently owned gas stations if absolutely necessary. I thought we weren't going to work. I mean, don't get me wrong, I go to a gas station, which is a dump of all the other gas stations' gas that couldn't be delivered. It's the cheapest gas in town because it's basically Sunoco, Exxon, Mobil, whatever, mixed together. This way the trucks don't have to go back for more gas with like a half-full tank kind of deal. We will not purchase any items made by companies that fall under the ownership of corporate giants that control our food supply. The struggle we had for Let Them Eat cereal to let people know just how many brands were owned by Kellogg. We, for 3 months, tried that, just with one company. We would still get questions. A month in, we still got questions. You will have to set up some kind of support call center where people can constantly ask questions, because I promise you, well, it says Kellogg on the box, but it also says Eggo. Is Eggo part of Kellogg? You guys need to build a support center for these kinds of questions repetitively. We will unionize our workplaces and go on to organize labor strike that is protected by law. Amazon, Trader Joe's, big companies have worked really hard to make sure this doesn't happen. You need to partner with the organizations that are already trying to push this. They have expertise in this area. Don't try to work around what is already trying to work. In your organization, I would highly recommend that you find people to strategize and be co-union rep things. We will delete and deactivate Meta and X. Meta and X are actively worked against the American people, silence our voices, and push far-right narratives, silencing marginalized people. Look, we begged people. When TikTok was going to die, we begged people not to go back to Meta, and influencers actively pushed people back to Instagram Meta. Their number one excuse was they didn't want to lose their follower account. They wanted to be the voice in the mix. A lot of people are not honest about their financial situation. A lot of people like to pretend that they are richer than they are. The Instagrammers who are pushing twice as hard, or realistically, they need that Instagram money, and they don't want to have to admit that out loud, so they'd rather just be seen as a heartless influencer. It's absolutely funding Zuckerberg and Elon, and shutting it off would be a major successful move for us, but human nature. Moving our bank accounts, lines of credit, and other financial businesses to small, locally centered credit unions. It's important to note some of these credit unions have requirements for membership, such as being employed by certain public institutions or being members of local historical societies, yes. But also for the disabled community, many of these local banks require in-person banking. Once a month, you have to figure out how to get all the seniors and the disabled to the banks. Also, I think Social Security comes out every week. I don't think every senior gets their money, so you're going to have to stagger that. Absolutely a fan of credit unions, local banks, even if you can figure out a trusted way to do community pooling. This is going to take logistics, and it doesn't seem like anybody's interested in keeping the community van going. It's also you make yourself rife for bank robbers. Well, highwaymen, I'm guessing. Oh, there's a bus full of seniors that just left the bank together. That's going to be dangerous. We'll stop dining at large chain restaurants and fast food. We will not use these popular delivery services like DoorDash, Grubhubs, whatever. Yes, but if we're being honest, a lot of these gig workers, DoorDash, Grubhub, there's a parking lot near me that at night the parking lot lets people park on the top floor. The $10 for overnight parking is cheaper than some other stuff, but it is safer than some of the other places they park. These gig workers in my neighborhood are living in their cars to turn off these services and then to, presumably have half the country not going to work, which would include, I'm guessing, food banks. That can leave a lot of people out of money and out of work. I mean, thankfully we're headed into spring, so at least they won't freeze in their cars, but there are a lot of people living in their cars right now. And gig work is their work. We will not give Starbucks, Dunkin', and other large coffee companies our money. Instead, we will use local coffee shops and buy from there. If Trump is going to put in more tariffs, which he will, know that corporations like Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts have gone out of their way to buy most of the green coffee bean supply. It's already choking out local roasters and local coffee shops. They might not be able to get their hands on affordable coffee beans, like well-intentioned, but more so work with local coffee shops, because when they just start selling you tap water with flavorings, keep buying whatever they sell you, because coffee is going to be one of the first things that becomes unattainable. We will only shop locally, no giant corporations or franchise chains, locally owned and operated establishments only. If the business is owned locally, or someone who owns multiple businesses, look into the owner's reputation and business practices. Do they seem reasonable and equitable? Do they seem ethical? This is one of the big ones. People ask me why Let Them Eat Cereal didn't go after Walmart. It's because for many, many places, Walmart is the only business in town. And by in town, many people have to drive 20 to 50 miles. And for most people who work at Walmart, the only thing they can afford is Walmart. So giving exceptions to people who have no other financial option whatsoever. I mean, this was done by design, but I would also suggest work to find some kind of community store, co-op, like a free library for food kind of situation. Community garden. It's not that these people want to be stuck shopping at Walmart. That's sometimes their only choice, and also their employer. Their employer spent 30 to 40 years digging up Main Street, making sure not one business was left. Undoing that takes a little bit longer than, March. We will keep our information safe. Download and install a good VPN, Proton VPN. You should look into what the Proton VPN CEO said recently. Tech giants sell our data and profit from it. Keep your data out of the hands of them. In trying to organize this global, well, at least the US kind of shutdown work freeze, yes, but also recognize that Proton has a cost to it, and so do VPNs. Many people use Gmail and don't have a VPN because they cannot afford the paid options. $4.99, $14.99 a month, that is money some people just do not have to spare. Those are the people we are asking to boycott. We will not use Microsoft, Apple, Google applications. A good alternative, Microsoft Office, is WPS Office. A good alternative to Google Maps is Magic Earth. Correct. Except these pesky phones, which force you to use their software. Use end-to-end encrypted communications such as Signal, Session, E2E, email options are Proton Mail, and To-to-Mail. Again, you might want to check into the Proton CEO. Yes to encrypted communication. You absolutely should be using encrypted communication, and WhatsApp as an encrypt. WhatsApp is also Meta, that was left off of. So many people, when you say Meta, think Facebook. They don't think it means Instagram, Threads, WhatsApp, so many others. We will build a strong community and initiatives to organize mutual aid community support for all our community members. You're going to have to teach your community to be a community. The very people who have been taught for decades about American exceptionalism. I am the bestest person ever. You're going to have to undo decades of work. You're going to need to accept that this is a long-term movement, not something that gets accomplished in 30 days. We will take non-violent, direct action to fulfill the movement of communities. Do not wait for somebody else to do the work. Do it yourself. If a job needs doing, do it. Everyone is a leader, so lead by example. Dare to dream. Dare to dream. We'll spread information about the shutdown worldwide. The photographs below contain important tips for spreading information both online and in person. Okay. Consider getting items secondhand from family, friends, community members, thrift shops, junkyards, trading posts, transfer stations, swap shacks. Start a trading post in your community where people can bring their unwanted items to be given away to anyone who wants or needs them. Deconstruct broken and damaged items and salvage the hardware and materials. Yeah, we should. Hopefully everybody has a community member who's willing to donate some barn, warehouse. We will continue this shutdown until the demands of our people are met. Good. What are our demands? While the full list of demands being added to and discussed and edited and submitted for legal expertise, here are some of our basics. Protection and permanent guarantee of civil rights for all. Yet when we write that down in our new constitution, you really need to spell it out because we the people was way too general last time and it just meant rich white dudes. Total government reform. Let's just be honest. Bureaucracy is bureaucracy. Like, there's going to be a little bullshit in the system. Norway, Sweden, Denmark, they're the closest to getting it right. They're not perfect. Publicly funded healthcare. Yeah, but also that does mean less options than Americans are used to now. You have to find a way to work with healthcare companies, well, really pharmaceutical companies, because yes, insulin should be free, if not like $1 at most. But with all the microplastics and all the specialty problems and the upcoming increase of, dementia and Alzheimer's, all the side effects that we're pretending don't exist but will have long-term effects on people and long-term consequences, you are going to have to figure out a way to work with pharmaceutical industries to make that happen. Everybody who thinks that COVID doesn't have long-term damage on the body is going to find out that that is a effing lie. Adequate and accessible disability support and service. The disabled community will now tell you how inaccessible the world is. That is like a 20-year goal. Even if you gave them a perfect platform of access to medical services and, an understanding of their needs, just think about the sheer number of buildings that are inaccessible to them because our infrastructure blows. That is going to be something that takes at least 10 years minimum, and that's if you have the resources to build ramps everywhere. And that's just a start. Permanent solution to homelessness, hunger, and the housing crisis. You have to address mental health. Some people choose homelessness because they don't want to be in a home. They want to live out in the forest. Hunger we can fix. And the housing crisis really comes down to we have enough square footage. We need to be able to use that square footage in a more efficient manner, and a lot of people need to break with the ideas that the only measure of success is a McMansion. You need to convince basically all the real estate people in New York City to retool those buildings to usable spaces, but also people need to realign their vision of what a home is. Respect and support the tribal sovereignty and involvement with indigenous leadership for environmental action. We should give this shit back to them, and they should get a fair call and everything they want done. It's fucking theirs. If we're gonna really, really retool it, they've been the most marginalized, they've been the most poorly treated, they've been in every way used and abused. If you truly want to rebuild this shit, rebuild it by giving it back to them. More power to American voters. One person, one vote. We're not always going to agree, and not everybody's going to agree with this. One person, one vote. Start a food security program. Food is often the biggest uniter of communities. Seed exchange program, reach out to farmers, landowners, see if they would be interested in participating in public using their land for community operations. Yeah, retool the laws about lawyers. It's not that people don't want to do good things. Grocery stores would probably just let people take food out of the dumpsters, but they're going to get sued for a million things, from food temp to expiration dates. Pull a shit ton of bureaucracy and legal bullshit out of the happy middle ground. France does a thing that grocery stores that are going to chuck produce have to send it instead to this kitchen. They turn it into soup, and then the soup is served to the homeless. See where I'm going? Download and install the Nextdoor app. It's a great way to get in touch with your community members. Have you seen some people's neighborhood apps? We really need to work on bringing back human decency first. Respect for all people. We're going to get back to my point about the news. Started trading, posting, Swap Shack. Yeah, we should. There should be less going into landfills. And we should get used to the idea of wearing 10-year-old out-of-style clothing. Wear the clothes that make you happy. Stop buying fast fashion. Organize food safety, cooking, baking classes at your local library and community centers. Community potluck. Yeah, we need more community. But also remember, you can't eat at everybody's house. So, there do need to be a few rules. If you live in an apartment complex, organize a tenants union. Yeah, again, back to community. And usually there's always one person who pretends to be part of the community before they run to the landlord to make a special deal. Have an accountability community on top of it. Unionize your workplace. Again, work with the existing, union reps. Don't try to wipe out the good work they're doing. If you live near an Amish or a Mennonite community, inform them of threats of fascism and list their expertise and skills in building a community. Stop pretending that the Amish and the Mennonites are these pure fucking individuals. They have a lot of problems in their communities, mainly towards women and children. You can work with them, but if you're going to be ethical about the local businesses, you need to look into the ethics of I'm just saying, they're not perfect either. They just don't report their crimes to the police. There are quite a few members of the corn community who are runaways from the Amish community. They have some stories to tell. Medical professionals who work with the elderly and disabled communities communicate and organize ways to keep the community healthy, safe, and cared for. Again, that requires community and a lot of people who don't see the elderly as valuable. That is a fundamental shift that it's going to take time. Form a group with childcare workers, educators, and mothers who will help provide support for families and children. Run background checks. A lot of people that are going to rush to help the kids first are not the people that should be touching kids. You have to be realistic about that. You have to be. There is a reason schools need checks. There is a reason you should be running background checks on anybody that comes near a kid. And I mean, there are a lot of people that just think a good slap upside the head is acceptable parenting. Talk to any teacher. Just talk to any teacher. Organize people willing to drive supplies and food who live in remote areas and may not be able to access community support. Yes. Also, bicycles, donkeys, mules. Organize a security team for your neighborhood. Start a community fundraiser to make sure everybody has what they need in the community. Beautiful. Don't panic buy or stockpile. You're about to create a run on the banks. Even though we are not shopping at Walmart or other large stores, most of the time Walmart and their giant retailers will donate items like toilet paper, toiletries, and other things to community drives and fundraising activities. Try to see if you're able to get a large amount of supplies donated from these companies. You're actively telling these companies you're never going to shop at them again, and you think they're going to donate to the local community. I think a lot of people would shutter their doors, just shut down their Walmarts and be like, cool, fuck you, we're out. Download and install Group App, a secure privately owned app with privacy at the forefront, its principles, and organized community initiatives. Fair enough. If you're a member of the indigenous tribe, you likely have a lot of the support in place. Indigenous culture is also centered around community. Find ways to reach out to tribal members who may be estranged and live outside the community and get them home. There could be some very good reasons they're estranged. Let's not try managing. Let's not. People get to make their own choices. But again, to your point, they often have, culture and centered around community. Cool, so let's give it all back to them, and then they can teach us their ways. The way they tried when the 1%ers landed on the shore and said, it's ours now. Together we will win. Join our Telegram and Signal channels. You'll be directed to a waiting room where you'll be given rules, yada yada, forums, subscribe. I feel this leaves off a lot of aspects about mental health. This is going to cause anxiety, depression, fear. Um, you have to be able to work with that. And the medical community that's going to be like, why do I have to go to work when nobody else has to? That could leave a lot of open loopholes. Also, people need news and information. Consider how hard it was for most people to onboard Facebook. They now need to download new app, new rules, new community, decentralized. I don't know, my cousin in Ohio. You have to create a centralized answer. Certain things from all these decentralized groups need to be standardized. This is how we believe this is done. This is how we believe this is done. Kind of like, here are the federal laws, here are the state laws. Because if the answer in Michigan is not the answer in New Jersey, it's going to cause chaos. But you're also detaching people from the teat of dopamine. It was hard enough for a lot of people to downshift from TikTok to Blue Sky because it doesn't give you that happy hit the same way. You want people to turn their backs on streaming services, news and entertainment and celebrity gossip and all the other things that distract them from their lives. If they are suddenly sitting home with a deck of cards because we didn't talk about entertainment at all. A lot of people who've been very used to all day, every day being distracted from their problems by focusing on other people's problems. Reality television is popular because it lets you look at other people and judge them. They might have more money than you, but they're more fucked up than you, so you get to judge them and not focus on yourself. This kind of a shutdown, this kind of a dopamine detachment is going to cause a massive mental health break, crisis. This also doesn't factor in people, and we did this with Let Them Eat Cereal. Here are my kids' safe foods. If you guys take out Kellogg, my kid's down to 2 things they can eat total. We'll just burn this shit to the ground. Yeah, that's a lot of jobs for a lot of people. If you shut down all these industries, what is your unemployment situation gonna be? Oh, well, we have a community full of stuff. That happened during the Depression. Everybody lost their job and people didn't really do community so much. Like, starting in March, we're gonna do this. It's going to be a 20-year long haul. It took us 80 years to get here. Doing it in 20 with Trump screwing with us every day. Look, it's admirable. And you could sum it up with, we want to be Sweden, we want to be Norway, we want to be Denmark. We want what they got, which is really where, like, Obamacare failed. It was very detailed and very explained, and essentially it should have just been, you get the exact same healthcare as your senator, and it's the best healthcare available in this country. This can easily be summed up. We need community, and we need to detach from the bullshit. But it's like going from heroin to methadone to drug-free. The heroin to the methadone is going to be a downshift. And we have to manage the mental health and all the chaos that's going to happen there. This is nice and this is lofty, but like, it doesn't factor in that corporations worked really hard to kill community. Media, entertainment, our government have pushed so hard for American exceptionalism. You have to work to convince people they're not the bestest thing that ever happened to the world. Most people don't want to hear that. Most people don't want to accept that. Look at the sheer amount of resistance Black Lives Matter got for just asking to matter. Again, I'd point you to Sweden, Denmark, Norway. They have racism, they have sexism, but they work really hard to put regulations in. You guys are also working to decentralize government. Either you're going to shut our borders and you just haven't discussed that yet, or you're going to have to find a way to rebuild our government and our elected officials. Unfortunately, the dirty side of government is you do have to make a deal. You have to find a way to protect our borders. You have to find a way to make deals with China that you're not going to like. I'm not against most of what they are planning, but if you're really going to turn this shit on its head, give it back to the indigenous people. It's theirs to begin with. So if we're going to start and be good from the start, let's be really good. Let the people who this land really belongs to determine what happens. You also left off reparations. I know that's very uncomfortable to talk about for a lot of people, but it's just like, oh, we'll wipe out all of history and then we'll elect our local leaders. Yeah, most indigenous people don't have Wi-Fi access. They barely have telephone or running water service. So a lot of this seems to be planned by white people. I would suggest that it become more inclusive. I'm not against any of this, but I think if we're going to be intentional about it, we should be intentional from the start. We are living on stolen land, marginalizing a people. While rebuilding this new society of ours, we are once again only giving them partial ownership. Feels really weird as a white person to be saying that, but I don't speak for them. But if we're going to put this in the mix and we're going to set it up properly, but also consider the other 52% of this country that is going to be violently against all this. What's the movie Defiant, whatever, with like abnegation and the four, like, here are the hippie farmers and here are the intellectual thinkers. Maybe it's time to kind of separate ourselves out into groups and geographically move, like, okay, you guys go over there, we'll be over here. I mean, I hope community works, but community is going to take us years to rebuild. We have been fed so many propaganda, pieces of information, media, entertainment. You think Hollywood's gonna take this sitting down? Oh, we're all equal? Okay, but I can still make my $1 million movies, right? Also, you need to figure in like universal base income because technology is coming. How does everybody get paid? And how do we put bumpers on the technology that is part of the reason this company or this country is so... I don't have all the answers, but there needs to be a bit more thinking involved here. I'm not against it. I'm just saying it needs some more thought.